Begin transmission 100218.
Welcome to Porcelain Peeps, a strange and scary podcast covering all things horror and science fiction. Here are your hosts, Anthony, John, and Anthony.
Alrighty, Constance. Thank you again, as always, for that excellent introduction. We are here with Season 2, Episode 25. How are my Porcelain Peeps doing?
I'm doing okay. It's been a roller coaster. This whole quarantine thing is really getting my goat on some days. Other days, things are okay. Took an opportunity to watch Onward with the wife over the weekend, and that was definitely a high point. Something that made my day go by a little bit better. I was feeling pretty low, and she's like, "Let's turn on some Disney." And I was like, "You know me."
I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah.
This is like my first quarantine week, I guess.
Yeah.
So for me...
Welcome to the club.
Yeah. I get to go back to work in a few days, so that's not too bad. But I've gotten a lot of house stuff done, and I just want to go to the movies.
Oh, I know, right?
But really badly. Sometimes I just drive by Regal. I miss you.
And just hand on the window.
But yeah, I mean, the biggest part for me is that I want to go do shit and see you guys without it being weird, and I want to see new movies.
Yeah.
You know, I want to get these quality movies usually that we see in theaters versus some of the streaming platforms, and so that's been kind of a bummer. But, I mean, other than that, I'm pretty good. I'm enjoying some time off, but I don't know how much I would be able to do.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely have some things to touch on in that territory specifically of things that could be coming out to theaters but are coming to streaming instead, that sort of stuff. It's very small news, but it's news.
How are you doing, Anthony?
I'm doing pretty well. I've been mostly just trying to keep myself busy doing the YouTube stuff. I just put out my second video called Silent Screams, and I cover the early 1920s silent films. I talk about Nosferatu and the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari, mixed in with a little bit of art history.
Dr. Calamari?
Dr. Calamari,
I just recommended Dr. Calamari to someone like 2 days ago.
Oh, really nice.
Yeah,
I have been keeping myself busy with that. The process of making like a 7-minute video took me probably like 4 nights, just because I'm very like meticulous.
Right.
Nitpicky.
And very like nitpicky.
Yeah.
So I probably uploaded the video like 5 different times, like watched it, realized there was some small thing that I wasn't 100% happy with.
Right.
You go back and edit it and put it in.
Feel free to do that with the podcast edits.
Oh, yeah, no. Those I'm just like, I don't know, that sounds fine. That's good. Yeah, by the way, speaking of editing, I thought that our last episode turned out super good. Wanted to bring that up. I gave you a little shout out when I posted about it on social media, but I thought I was listening to it. I actually went out to Target and had like a weird quarantine experience there because they've completely changed the way they let people into the store now.
They count people at the door.
They count people. You have to wait like in a queue outside, and then they let you in like one at a time or group at a time.
They have it blocked off with carts. So the carts make like an L that push you off to the side of the door, and then they have the manual doors completely locked. So it's just the automatic doors.
I was there today, and it wasn't like that.
That's weird because that's how it's been the past couple of days.
Which one did you go to?
Riverbank.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
It's like that in Modesto here.
They have like the ropes or whatever, but there's
The stanchions. Yeah, those. I don't think they had those as an opportunity at the Modesto location, so they were like, we got an abundance of carts, so let's just do this.
Cool. Well, I am super excited. The video came out at time of recording, and so it's been a while out now, but I will probably love it. So I'm going to just plug it like, oh, dude, that video was so good. I'm really into it. Thanks.
Yeah, hopefully there'll be a whole nother video by the time this actually goes out to people.
Yeah. I'm trying to keep like a weekly schedule, which right now is really easy since I don't have much else going on.
Right.
Kind of balancing that with like watching new horror stuff and keeping up with what we need to do for the podcast, which speaking of what we did for the podcast, today's episode is one that's near and dear to my little heart.
Literally, like right now, he's wearing a Crypt Keeper t-shirt.
Yeah, so we are talking about Tales from the Crypt, which I've mentioned in previous episodes. I think like in my interview episode, I probably talked about it.
Many moons ago.
That Tales from the Crypt is a very, very formative horror show for me. It was something where I even mentioned this in my first video, I watched it when I was way too young to be tuning into anything on HBO, let alone something as pretty off the wall and brutal as Tales from the Crypt. So what we decided to do for this episode was do similar to what you guys did with your Twilight Zone episode, which is do kind of a roulette, randomly pick 2 episodes each from throughout the entirety of the series and do our little takes. I know you guys don't have quite as much experience with the show, so I'll be interested to hear what you have to say about it. For me, it was kind of like a trip down memory lane. But before we get to the nitty-gritty of all that, let's get on with the news.
This is it, Jennifer. Your big break in TV. Fuck the prime time, bitch.
I mean, as you guys know, news has been pretty light the last few weeks because not a ton of stuff is progressing. There was some interesting stuff that I shared with you guys, so I'll share it here too. New Mutants has some kind of contractual obligation that it can't go to VOD.
It has to go directly to streaming, right?
It has to go directly to streaming. It can't go to VOD without having been in theaters first, part of the Disney-Fox merger, and so it has to go straight to streaming, so Disney would see essentially no money for it.
Other than potentially gaining new subscribers to Disney Plus or something along those lines.
So it is in the rating that Disney Plus would hold. I think that we had that conversation on one of our last episodes. Would it fit with Disney Plus and their repertoire?
Yeah.
They're trying to stay within the kind of the PG-13 area. There's a little bit more on the horror side. They don't really have too much stuff like that outside of stuff like the Black Cauldron.
Yeah.
So they're talking about maybe doing Hulu, which would also make sense considering that Disney owns most of Hulu.
On top of that, Hulu would be a place where they could play ads.
Right.
And they would be able to recoup money that way.
Oh, yeah.
They were also talking about sending it to HBO because I guess for like the last few decades, anything that was Fox went straight from theaters to HBO. That was the first place it went. And so Fox kind of had that deal, and that deal between Fox isn't up until 2022.
It's like in perpetuity for a while, yeah.
So there hasn't been a ton of push forward with it. If we are going to see it, it looks like it might be on something like HBO.
Yeah, and to jump into my neck of the woods for news, since like I said, there really isn't that much. The information that we got a few weeks ago about the potential of them looking at going to streaming with options like Black Widow and Mulan is not happening now, at least at this moment in time. They're still considering it, but they have picked new theater dates. That doesn't mean that will actually make it to its theater date. If more of this stuff is going the way that it has been, we might not be in theaters by then, which would be terrible because the first one of those is in November. That would be god-awful. But they did take a sci-fi property out of a book and they made it into a movie, and they've been talking about releasing it in May when they were originally looking at a theater date, and that is Artemis Fowl, which is a big sci-fi like young adult style novel. They're talking about just foregoing the theater route altogether and just releasing it straight to Disney Plus, which would be interesting. I know that there's a little controversy with that because based on the trailers, a lot of people who are very, very heavy about the book are not about what they've seen so far in the trailers. It's tough to say. I haven't read the books. It's not really necessarily my territory. I mean, I'm not the person who typically strays super far away from young adult novels, but I think this one was just outside of when I was reading those types of books. So as far as that goes, they're saying that it could potentially come out around when it was supposed to be in theaters, but that it may be sooner or later. They haven't decided yet. But the decision at this moment in time is they are heavily looking at dropping it on streaming instead.
Well, I actually did read the first 4 maybe Artemis Fowl books, so I will speak as our resident Artemis Fowl expert. Yeah, and I think you're a little bit older than me, so I feel like it might have just been something that passed you by. But they were pretty big, 10 years ago, maybe. So that's what I think is especially strange about this movie. I didn't check out the trailer because this is a movie that really should have come out back when they tried to make Aragon a thing, and back when Harry Potter was still happening. Hunger Games, even earlier than Hunger Games. Artemis Fowl was big when I was probably in grade school or middle school. That people were reading that series. So I think it's just one of those things where the crowd has grown out of that series, and so I really do think that they should take advantage of the fact that they can kind of sneak it under the radar and get it onto streaming right now with the excuse being the coronavirus and not we don't really know how to market this movie and don't think it's going to be very successful.
Yeah, and if it turns out that it's cool, dope, we got another thing on streaming. If it's not cool, people will ignore it.
Well, the thing with that's going on with Disney Plus right now is there's not a lot of draw outside of nostalgia. Once that wears off, how much are you going to be watching it? I was watching it a lot when we were watching The Mandalorian. But since then, I don't even go on it.
I turn it on at least twice, 2 or 3 times a week. We're a big Disney family, so
Right.
as far as that goes, like that, aside from nostalgia, like even just keeping up with the new things, like I said, they dropped Onward, they did Frozen 2 before that, and those things came super quickly to the platform rather than taking their time. And
But that's smart. And for them to release stuff like Artemis Fowl, I think is going to boost their sales for Disney Plus.
yeah,
Well, yeah, I think I'm in the same boat that you are, and I really do think it just depends on what your tastes are. Like if you are a big Disney person, which I used to be, not as much anymore. Like now you can't even go to the parks. For me, I think I've only opened it like twice since I downloaded it, and it was, I mean, besides watching The Mandalorian, which is exactly like if you don't have kids or you're not just big on like Disney nostalgia, then yeah, Disney Plus is probably one of the first streaming services I would consider getting rid of. Really, the only reason I haven't thought about that is because I'm on the Verizon like free year or whatever that they have. So yeah, so I hop on every once in a while, but until they get something, like if they got Artemis Fowl, I'd check it out.
Yeah,
I'd
I
be
would
like,
too.
yeah, even if it's awful, like I'm not paying to go see it in the theater.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
Yeah, I would check it out. Speaking of things that are streaming, I just wanted to bring up my favorite talking point of the year so far, which is The Invisible Man. It has a release date for its actual legit release. It's coming to digital on the 12th of May, and then 4K, Ultra HD, and Blu-ray on the 26th of May. Lee Winnell tweeted about it and said that the 4K release has tons of extras, a whole commentary from him, lots of featurettes, interviews with cast and crew. So
he's
that
hamming it up, and I fucking love it. Like,
Yeah.
like take your victory lap, dude. You fucking deserve it.
Yeah, he loves talking about the movie because it's been so popular. He is super excited, and I am super excited because I cannot get enough of commentaries in general. So, and his commentaries, I listened to every commentary he's done for any of his movies now, all the ones for Saw, the one for Upgrade. So one for Invisible Man is definitely going to be on my radar as soon as it comes out, and I'm looking forward to, because I didn't rent it when it was streaming because it was like $20 to rent, and I was like, I can wait until it comes out with the actual release, and then I'll buy it and give him the money that he deserves.
Yeah. Pick it
They
up
should
on
do
like Apple TV or
a
something.
clear box.
Ooh, that's a
you
cool
can just
idea.
clear-
Clear
disc.
box, clear disc.
No, they can't do that, right?
I'm sure they probably can find a way.
I was gonna say if they do a clear disc, like
The laser would just shoot through and burn a hole through your ceiling.
yeah, that'd be
That's how
terrifying.
strong they are.
Well, like a clear disc would be like, because for me, sometimes I'll take a disc out of my PlayStation and I'll just like set it somewhere because I'm an awful monster.
Yeah.
And I'll just set it somewhere because I'll be like eager to watch the next thing. If the disc was invisible, I'd lose that shit for like a month, 2
Yeah,
months.
yeah, it's
like
gone.
just set
Sorry.
it somewhere and
See
have
you
no
later.
idea. Where's my copy of Invisible Man? But anyway, is that everything that we got for news this week?
Yeah, I think that's going to pretty much wrap it up. There's not much.
Cool. If you want to check out the full articles for that news, I'm trying to get back on making sure that on the Facebook page specifically, I am posting all of the news articles that we discuss on the show. I will be posting those as soon as the show airs, and then that'll get you to come pop on here and hear our full thoughts. But anyway, let's go ahead and move on to some trivia, guys. I'm feeling good about this week.
Trivia. I was waiting for you to hit me with the falsetto.
What's the next segment?
Trivia.
Here's how we play. I ask a question. If you get it right, Steve lives.
Please don't do this.
Come on, it'll be fun.
Please.
It's an easy category.
Please.
Movie trivia. Or even give you a warm-up question.
Don't do this. I can't.
Name the killer in Halloween.
All right, trivia nerds. Me, Anthony, is going to be reading John. John's going to read to the other Anthony, and the other Anthony's going to read to this Anthony. So let's get started with that monster. What was the country of origin for the film Nosferatu
Oh, shit.
from 1922?
I am.
If you had watched my newest video, you would know.
Damn.
That's a hard bummer, my guy. I'm going to say Germany.
That is correct.
Yeah,
Good job. I'm proud of you. Guess you don't have to watch my video.
No, I'm still going to watch the video. All right. What special effects artist created the werewolf transformation scene in An American Werewolf in London from 1981?
It's going to be our boy John Landis. And that's the director. It's Rick Baker. Yeah.
I'll give you the correction. It is Rick Baker.
Okay. Because I got it before you revealed it. So
Yeah, it is
I think
true.
that
It
counts.
is true. It is true. And you
Rick
didn't
Baker.
you didn't finish your sentence either.
Yeah.
So
It was a stream of consciousness thing.
I will give you the point for that one.
I
though
will
you're
not be giving you the point.
even though
well,
you're not gonna.
We got like a parallel realities trivia game happening
Yeah,
now.
throw the dice up.
Yeah.
No, that's fair.
No, as soon as I said it, I was like, oh, fuck, no. But I'm counting it. All right, Anthony. What is the name of the princess of whom Helen is a reincarnation in The Mummy in 1932?
Oh, fuck. Is it the same name? Anaxunamun.
It is Princess Anaxunamun.
Yeah.
Nice. Blair.
I just know that because of Brendan Fraser, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen the original.
You're
it's
like,
just not my favorite.
thank God they used the same Egyptian
know, right?
names, like fake Egyptian names for the remake.
All right, so at the end of round one, it is ones all around
Yeah,
for
it
them
is.
boys, and we're gonna go ahead and hit that gore/disturbing. John, who directed the Grindhouse 2007 fake trailer for Don't?
I wish I remembered this specific trailer. It's been so long since I've seen the full version of Grindhouse.
Ooh, finally, your not watching trailers comes back to bite you in the ass.
I watched all of those trailers. It was 2007, and it was like 1 o'clock in the morning. Shit. I'm going to say it was Wes Craven.
That is incorrect. It was Edgar Wright.
Oh, okay.
Wow.
Your boy.
Yeah, it is directly my boy. All right. So, what is the name of the mutant that sacrifices herself to help the Carter family survive in The Hills Have Eyes, the 2006 version?
Pluto.
Pluto Nash.
That caught me off guard so hard. Is it Tuesday in here? Because the character's name is Ruby.
Ooh.
That was a terrible joke. I'm
You're
sorry.
an idiot.
Yeah, that was awful. That's minus 1 point for John. All right, Anthony. Who directed the Grindhouse?
Shut up.
Who directed the Grindhouse 2007 fake trailer for Thanksgiving?
Are you serious?
Yeah,
Oh, fuck. I think that one was Eli Roth.
it was. Yeah, good job.
That one's the most like recognizable of the group for sure.
That's probably the best thing he's ever done.
Probably pretty close.
Burn! I'm sorry, Eli. All right, cool. So that takes us to 1, 1, 2.
Two.
Let's see if I can keep that crown, baby, as we get to psychological.
Great kid, don't get cocky.
John, in Pet Cemetery from 1989, what type of vehicle hits Gage Creed on the highway near the family house?
Is that going to be a semi truck?
It is a truck, according to this. Doesn't have exactly what kind of truck, so I will accept that.
Tight. All right. In
you got the wrong answer. It's still got a point.
in what decade?
I definitely said John Landis directed the film where Rick Baker created the makeup.
All right. In what decade is The House of the Devil from 2009 set? And you better know this.
Is it set? I'm torn between 2 decades, and I'm not 100% sure.
Go with the gut. 2 of the best things in the world came from this decade.
Hey, no hints. He's already up.
No, you are.
Yeah, shh.
Is it set in the 70s?
It is not set in the 70s. It is set in the 80s, where your
I was
boys
torn-
came from.
I was nice.
You're on fire today.
I was torn between the 60s and the 80s. So that's fine.
So you went 70s?
You just
I
laid
went
up in the,
70s,
laid
yeah.
up in the center.
Because I was trying to remember in the movie, like, anything that would, like, directly just be like, oh, that totally took place in the 80s, or that totally took place in the 60s, and I was like, 60s is too early, which I was right. Anywho, Anthony.
I was watching this movie with Kyle the other day called Drinking Buddies. Have you guys seen that?
Yes.
No.
And Ty West is in it.
Mhm. Yeah.
I was like, is that Ty West? And Kyle was like, oh.
It's probably just one of those guys that's just, like, friends with everybody.
And then another dude from Your Next, the like dickhead brother, like the rich one. Well, I guess they're all rich, but like the real dickhead one. He was in it too. He's the guy that the main character gets into a fight with. Like,
Yeah.
I was like, wait, what the hell is going on? Anyway, go ahead.
Weird. All right, Anthony. What is the name of the U.S. Senator and presidential candidate for which Leo Barnes is head of security in the Purge election year, 2016?
Fuck. Claire Danes.
Ooh, so close. It was Senator Charlie Roan.
That was not close at all. All right, so at the end of that round, that brings John to 2, Anthony to 1, and me to 2. we are going to hit...
Friggin'.
Joe Pesci impression?
Yeah.
Here we go, John, with Paranormal in Poltergeist from 82 on what is the house community Quest Verde built?
Is it an Indian burial ground?
It's a common misconception. Just watched a video about this.
Oh, okay. So no?
No.
Okay.
Well, what does the answer read
Well,
off?
this says cemetery.
So that's why I was going to... So there's a common misconception that the movie Poltergeist has anything to do with an Indian burial ground, which actually doesn't come from that movie.
So it's just a cemetery.
So it's just a cemetery where they moved the headstones but left the bodies, which is why when she's in that scene when she is like in the water outside, all the skeletons start coming out of the ground. So it wasn't technically a Native American burial ground. It was a cemetery, which I think are completely different things, but that's only because I really don't want you to get the point. So
And I mean, like I said, if I went to a specific that it is not, then I didn't get the point.
So no?
I'm gonna say if it doesn't say anything about being Native American at all, I say
Okay.
as long as you agree with me not giving you that point,
Well,
then I,
just
don't feel like
like
an asshole.
Yeah, I mean, an Indian burial ground technically is a cemetery, but all cemeteries aren't Indian burial grounds.
Yeah, it's like a square and a rectangle situation.
Yeah. All right. Well, sorry, John.
Four-sided triangle.
it's all good. That's my bad. All right. Who composed the musical score for the Amityville Horror in '79?
I don't know my composers from this time very well. Is it somebody like I should know, like a big horror?
I mean, you might know it, but it would take a lot of coaxing.
Who is the artist formerly known as Prince?
It is most certainly not Prince. It is Lalo Schifrin.
Yeah, wouldn't have gotten that. All right, Anthony. What type of animal is Black Phillip in The Witch 2015?
The goat?
You are correct.
Okay.
It is a goat.
It's a devilish little goat.
You were worried it was a sheep.
I was worried it was a ram.
I would have given it to you if you'd said ram. The Dodge Ram.
Okay, the score is 3-2-1, and we're going to go ahead and get into that killer because this is taking forever. John, with a slam dunk here, who directed the 1996 film Scream?
I'm going to say that's Wes Craven. I already talked about him.
Correct.
Ooh, it's actually Rick Baker.
Oh, bummer. Maddie in Hush from 2016 is which of the following? A writer, a photographer, a musician, or a farmer?
A writer?
It is a writer.
All right, cool. I got a point. Anthony Perez, what other Christmas-themed film did Black Christmas from 1974 director Bob Clark make?
Silent Night, Deadly Night.
It was actually A Christmas Story from 1983.
Really?
Apparently,
Wow.
according to Trivial Pursuit Horror Edition.
I believe it.
A Christmas story.
Okay, I believe you.
All right, so next round is international, and we are at 3-2-3 as far as points go. And John, your question is from Audition 1999. What is the audition process meant to help Aoma find?
Is it a sacrifice?
It is not. She's trying to find a wife.
Ah, okay.
How many Fog Founders?
How many Fogtown founders? All right. At the start of Raw from 2016, what has protagonist Justine abstained from eating all her life?
Meat.
That's correct. I don't have to turn the card over.
Also one of my recos for this week.
No spoilers, dude.
All right, Anthony. On what holiday is Inside from 2007 set?
I don't even know what that is. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say Thanksgiving.
Ooh, it's actually Christmas Eve.
And that's a three-way tie
Well, shit.
for the second consecutive week.
We're getting too good for this trivia, I think. I think we need to
Now what?
step up the game. Maybe a knife fight.
What we did last week was we had somebody read just the very top one, and then we tried to guess as quickly as possible.
Okay, you ready? Who directed Creep Show from 1982? Wes Craven, right?
George Romero.
Oh, fuck!
Did I get it?
Yeah.
Nice.
That's actually George A. Romero.
He's not wrong.
Fuck, I was referring to George B. Romero.
George R. Romero. George R. Romero.
All right, so that is the end of trivia, and Mr. Silva takes the crown.
Once again, where it rightfully belongs.
Very disappointing for everybody involved.
Well, if you enjoyed that trivia as much as I did this week, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on any of those fun little nitpicky battles that we have. Let's move on to what we're really here to discuss, guys. The main course.
I know this steak doesn't exist. I know that when I put it in my mouth, the Matrix is telling my brain that it is juicy, and delicious. After 9 years, you know what I realized? Ignorance is bliss.
All right, so as I mentioned earlier, this week we are tackling one of my favorite shows of all time, Tales from the Crypt. We decided to, like I said earlier, each pick 2 episodes at random, give them a little viewing, which really didn't take up very much time. The show's only, 25 minutes, half hour?
Yeah, the versions that I found of the episodes, for whatever reason, had part of the episodes looped back at the end.
Oh, nice.
It was weird.
Gotta love YouTube. I assume that's where everybody but me found the episodes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we are going to go ahead and share our spoiler-filled thoughts on these episodes. I mean, really, they're fun to watch, whether you know what's going to happen or not. But we can go ahead and start with my first episode, which was from Season 1, Episode 5. It was called Lover Come Hacked Me. This one was pretty basic for like a first season Tales from the Crypt episode. Definitely felt familiar because I've seen like the first couple seasons a million times. But this one, I think the most interesting thing about it was that it's directed by Tom Holland, big horror director for anybody who is familiar.
Not
by Spider-Man.
Not that Tom Holland.
back when he was non-existent. Yeah, so this one was pretty fun. Basically, it's about a newly married couple. The man, in classic Tales from the Crypt fashion, is a like long-haired 90s douchebag buff guy who just married the woman for her money. She's got a big family fortune or whatever. Yeah. So they get caught in the rain. It's a very Rocky Horror Picture Show. They end up in this creepy ass mansion, and there's a big ominous axe over the fireplace that you know is going to come into play, obviously, later on in the episode. They have some pretty boring build-up where they kind of talk to each other. She's like, "You only love me for my money," and he's like, "No, of course not." They sleep together. The guy wakes up, walks downstairs, sees that his wife now has a new man that she's basically doing the same routine with. And in that routine in the living room, he sees that she basically is like, "Oh, I want our love to last forever," picks up the axe and like chops the guy to pieces. The dude realizes, "Oh shit, that's the lady I just married. That's what happened with her mom. Her mom killed her dad when my wife's dad on their honeymoon night. Oh shit." Then he realizes, he runs in to try to help. He's a ghost. He got murked. Ooh. Then he wakes up. Turns out he didn't get killed. He wakes up, his wife's there, and she's like, "What's up, honey?" And he's like, "Oh, I just had this crazy dream that you wanted to kill me with the axe." And then, of course, what does she have hiding behind the door? The axe. And she's like, "That's weird. That's exactly what I was going to do." And then, she chops him up into little bits. And then the episode ends with her talking to, like, her aunt. And she's like, "Yo, but I'm pregnant. So that's all I wanted was to have a baby. And that baby's going to need to find a husband someday, too." It's the family tradition.
Damn.
Yeah.
And they just keep getting away with it, too. You know why? Because there's no Scooby-Doo.
Yeah, basically, if only Scooby-Doo existed in the Tales from the Crypt universe. This one was pretty good. Still, like, early seasons, like, really rigid, less goofy Crypt Keeper.
Okay.
Like, when the puppet was still very rudimentary. They hadn't really knocked out the kinks and stuff. It's pretty straightforward. Not as much, like, goofy stuff going on in the intro or the outro. And the episode is pretty, like, seen it a million times type of Tales from the Crypt.
All right. Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah, with the plot and everything and the little twist at the end. But I enjoyed it. What about you, Anthony? You had an episode?
Based off what you're saying, it seems like they have similar themes throughout some of these episodes as far as like couples go. So mine was Four-Sided Triangle, which makes sense now that I've seen it because it's a love triangle, but there's 4 people involved. I don't know. So it has Patricia Arquette, who looked great. She was very young, and I was like, "What's up?" So I was immediately intrigued because I don't have a lot of familiarity with Tales from the Crypt.
Yeah.
Or as I like to call it, Tales of the Crypt.
Yeah.
So that was cool. The Crypt Keeper was very full of puns and did it the whole time, which I was like, "Oh, man, this is great." It's very cheesy. It's very campy, but it works. And in this one, it's Patricia Arquette is like a farmhand helping out this old lady and old man. And the old man kind of spies on her and rubs one out. It felt very like Gus Van Sant.
Oh, yeah.
Psycho. And then he tries to rape her and then gets away. Or she gets away and then hits her head. And when she like comes out of her daze, she sees this scarecrow. And she thinks he comes to life. And you're not really sure if that's in her head or not. Because now they think she's kind of loopy. but she's in love, and she keeps talking about my man this and my man that, and then they realize that she's talking about the scarecrow, and the husband's like a pervert still, and he's like, hey, I'm real, I could do stuff for you, and the wife's like, if you cheat on me, I'll kill you. He's like, no, I'm not going to do it. So then she keeps going out every night to see the scarecrow. So one night, unbeknownst to anybody, including the audience, the farmer man dresses up in the scarecrow's clothes.
Ooh.
Super weird scarecrow. They put a clown mask on it, which I've never seen before. So that was a little bit of surprise.
Birds are afraid of clowns.
Then she starts getting frisky with it.
Oh, nice.
And then he starts getting frisky back. And then the wife comes out and was like, that's not real, look. And stabs it with a pitchfork over and over and over and over.
Of course, yeah.
Right, yeah. It's like, it's just stuffing. And then it starts bleeding. He's like, oh, my God. And then Patricia Arquette's like, yeah, that was a bitch. And then stabs the farm lady.
Oh, shit.
And then it all ends. So happy endings all around for this show. But it seems like that's kind of the format of the show where it's build up, and then a punch at the end.
Yeah, they're very much... I mean, it's classic, like, Twilight Zone. Like, there's the twist. There's always the twist at the end, the reversal or whatever. Tales from the Crypt just tends to be very classic, like, shitty characters getting their comeuppance type of thing, where it's like, if you're a weirdo or like perverse or you're just a shitty person, you typically get a really brutal, gruesome, like fucked up ending to your Tales from the Crypt episode. So you can tell, like, okay, you know, immediately when the episodes start what's gonna happen. But sometimes they can be pretty creative. What about you, John? What episode did you have to start with?
All right, so I got to watch Corman's Calamity, both Ks. And as far as that one goes, it was a little on the meta side. So basically, it involves a Tales from the Crypt magazine artist who is, you know, staying late at work and everything, and his wife shows up and like is like really pissed off, saying like, "Oh, you sleeping with the secretaries and all this other shit," and like is like super overbearing and like really coming down on him. And this guy's kind of a little bit of a creep on his own, but I guess they're having issues bearing a child. And so she keeps making him take these like non-FDA approved pills that are supposed to make him more fertile. So he takes the pill and he draws this creature, and then the creature comes to life. He goes to a laundromat and he meets this woman there. And when he leaves, the woman is then attacked by a rapist. And then the rapist is then attacked by a monster, like a giant frog monster that comes out of one of the washing machines. And so they
naturally
like totally like yanks his head off and all this other shit. And like, so like she bounces, and it turns out that she is a police officer. And so she's telling like the police chief like oh, like this is what happened, like you got to believe me. And he's like, yeah, that says the same lady who said that there was a Tyrannosaurus Rex that was in her Volkswagen Beetle, and the other person who said that they were attacked by a two-headed ogre. And so she is just kind of like, whatever, I know, I saw what I saw. The next day she's in her full like force regalia, wearing her blues. And she's walking by her typical newsstand that she normally goes to, and then she sees the frog creature on the cover of the Tales from the Crypt. You got me doing it now, damn it! The Tales from the Crypt cover, and then sees the T-Rex on the previous cover, and then the two-headed ogre on the cover before that. And so she grabs all of them, and she finds out that they're all penned by the same artist. And so she ends up like sneaking into this guy's car, and he's in the process of like, he's staying late at work again, drawing out a new thing, and then you see it kind of like creep up in the background, and then he crumples up the paper because he doesn't like it and throws it away, and then the monster disappears. So we go through this whole process. He goes down to the car, and she's in the back seat like, hey, like, you've been doing all this stuff, we need to prove that this is what's going on. And he's like, oh, you're the bitch from the fucking laundromat. So they go upstairs back into the drawing room of the magazine. He draws out a monster, and they basically are just going to wait it out to see if they find something, but they share a passionate kiss while they're upstairs.
Passionate kisses. Whoa, whoa.
So the next day, these kids stumble upon a refrigerator, and the refrigerator had like a weird swamp zombie in it, and that was what he drew the night before, was the refrigerator and the swamp zombie. They end up setting it free, and they report it. So she is going to get in contact with him about it. But on top of that, the wife shows back up at work and is like, what the fuck is going on? Like, she's like, I got a surprise for you because you're such a shithead. And so she goes back down to her car and goes and gets a gun. and comes back up to shoot him. But during that time frame, he was so mad that he drew her as a monster. And so the her as a monster comes around the corner when she gets up there with the gun, and they start duking it out. The police officer lady shows up, and they meet up, and they end up going to a restaurant, which he drew, like, for himself. He drew a little picture of the two of them at a restaurant. And so they live happily ever after, and obviously the wife gets murked by herself.
Wow. That sounds like a really cool episode that I'm
Lots to
actually
pick
like,
apart.
yeah, that sounds really awesome.
Yeah.
Don't Cry Wolf, that kind of shit. There's a very similar episode of Twilight Zone
Yeah, it seems to be a
where he writes whatever he writes, and if he like records it, or no, he writes it and then throws it in the fire or some shit,
yeah.
and then it comes to life. Yeah.
I was a big fan of this show, Tales from the Crypt, when I was a kid, but because the Crypt Keeper scared me so much, I would watch the animated spin-off that they did, which was, I think, called Tales from the Crypt Keeper. So I could watch like the cartoon version of him, and they have an episode that's almost exactly, I mean, obviously without all of the adult HBO parts of that, so like not the romance stuff or anything like that. It's just a kid who draws, gets the power to make his drawings come to life.
Yeah.
Because the Crypt Keeper actually shows up and like breaks the reality of the thing and is like in the episode, and he gives the magic pen or whatever to the kid, and the kid goes around and starts creating monsters. So yeah, it sounds super cool. My next episode is also like way more off the wall and crazy than the first episode that I watched, which makes a lot of sense because I think for all of us, our later episodes came like way later in the seasons, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Mine was final season.
Yeah, so mine was final season 2, which for anyone who doesn't know, the final season of the show, they moved to the UK and filmed there. So if you watched an episode and were maybe like me wondering why suddenly everybody was British and they were like, all the horror was taking place in like these big British countryside places, it's because they moved the whole production over there in the last season. But this one I immediately knew it was going to be different because it opens with a more extended, more elaborate Crypt Keeper intro.
What's this one called?
This one is called Report from the Grave. And this one opens with a very punny, I mean, I sent it to you guys, but the Crypt Keeper is doing his whole farming thing. He's got a whole bit going. Introduces the episode. This one is a scientist and his partner, who is like his research partner and his romantic interest. They have developed this technology that allows them to see the memories of deceased people. So the episode opens with them uncovering this tomb of this kind of like Vlad the Impaler type guy who had this long history of just torturing and murdering people. And so they uncover his tomb, set him up with the whole headset thing, and they're going to look through his memories. And of course they're like, oh, I don't think the power's high enough. So the guy goes, he starts fiddling with dials and stuff. Gets a letter that shows that the girl has like submitted their project without his permission to some like British grant. He gets pissed off. She just, of course, put on the headset the other headset to be like, oh, okay, let me test it, see if I can fix it. He goes, oh, you know, he's all pissed. You want the juice? Turns it all the way up, kills her.
Oh,
she has this like crazy trippy vision where she starts seeing all of the like torture and crazy stuff and like all the people that this guy has killed. Fries her brain and kills her. So then the research guy is all bent out of shape about that. He has some like nightmare visions about being like in an insane asylum and all this stuff. Wakes up in the hospital. He's like, I'm okay, but now he's like even more, of course, like the tortured Frankenstein type scientist, where he's like, now I got to perfect my thing and figure out how to bring her back to life because I killed her, so now I got to bring her back to life. So he fucks with the machine, gets it all up and running again, gets a bunch of, it looks like other dead women. There's just a bunch of like topless frozen dead women. He hooks the machine up to a bunch of women, brings her back, like physically she's back. They have sex, you know, it's classic HBO stuff, so there's got to be a long, passionate sex scene. And then she's like, I'm not real, I'm a memory, like I don't belong here, I have to go. And he's like, no, stay. As long as the machine's running, you know, you can stay. It's cool. What he doesn't realize is that by bringing her back, she's also connected to the Impaler guy. So then he shows up, busts through the door. He's all done up, all ghastly, all ghouly, busts through the door. They're like, shit, we just unleashed this like horrible tyrant that's going to kill everybody. So the scientist rips all the cables out of the machine, shuts it down. The tyrant and his girlfriend or whatever, they fade away. They disappear. He gets all like despondent and depressed. And his friend, one of his colleagues, finds a book that's like The Secrets of Life and Death. And it was, I guess, like written by the tyrant guy. It's like how he discovered like his curse or whatever. Gives him the book, steals his diary, and leaves. And you think like, oh, okay, the whole episode's just going to turn into like this guy stealing his project and doing all this crazy stuff. No, he goes back with the police to the place where the scientist was staying. He's in his bathtub. He's slit his wrists and killed himself. There's blood on the book. I guess he read the book, discovered whatever the secret was of like life and death, killed himself because he's so distraught over like the fact that he can't be with his love. And then the last thing that they notice is that there's a heart drawn on the dew on the window, but it's from the outside on the second story. And so they're all like, how did somebody draw a heart on the second story when nobody could have gotten there? And then that's the end of the episode.
How did somebody draw?
I guess it's supposed to be implied that it was like her spirit came back and like drew on it, and then he killed himself because he was so distraught about it or whatever.
Sounds kind of sweet, kind of fucked up.
Yeah, it's very a very bittersweet ending for sure. It's not
very Frankensteinian.
Yeah, and it's definitely not one of the I'm laughing because that was so over the top sort of endings. It definitely is a depress you ending, but I felt like the structure of the story kept me guessing and was a lot more like involved than some of the earlier episode stuff was. They had obviously got like way more because most of these stories are based off of issues of the comic book, of the EC comic, but they started going off into other stuff a little bit later on. But yeah, so how about your second episode? What was that all about?
My second episode was called Beauty Rest, and it starts off with an actress, and she's about to get this part, and then turns out she's not getting it, so she poisons her roommate who actually got the part, and she accidentally kills her. She wasn't trying to kill her, she was just trying to steal her next audition. And her roommate was supposed to be at this beauty pageant and had a letter that she was going to give to the judge and like, hey, this is from whoever, I win. So she automatically was going to win. So then she gets there and then she gives the dude the letter in place of her roommate and is like, hey, I'm going to win. And then he's like, all right, sounds good. And then about halfway through the pageant, he's like, oh, yeah, that letter's nothing. You're not going to do it. And so she's mad. She finds out who is going to win and then decides to kill her. And it is revealed that whoever wins the pageant is the spokesperson now for something. They don't say. So she's about to win. They take her backstage and you don't know what's going on. She gets injected with shit. You're kind of freaking out. And at the end, it's revealed that it's a pageant for Miss Autopsy. And so she comes out dead and spread open.
Oh, sick.
Yeah. And so that was kind of weird. I was not expecting that, but that's a really weird idea where it's like, twist, it's an autopsy pageant.
Yeah, that's definitely like I'm sure that that's a story that has to be from the comics because the comics are definitely like that. The stories are very short and the twists usually are like off the wall and kind of come out of nowhere. Yeah. And it'll be like just goofy ideas like that. Like obviously if you start thinking about like somebody's human rights or, you know, and stuff like that, then that entire idea falls apart. But on just like I like to imagine the Crypt Keeper just made all this shit up. Like it doesn't have to follow the rules of any sort of like logic or anything. So I kind of like the idea that they all take place in their own weird, spooky world where stuff like an autopsy pageant could actually exist.
It reminds me sort of grim fairy tales where there's some kind of small lesson. Like that one, beauty's not everything and be careful what you wish for. Or like with the first one, love who you got. Don't try to be a fucking pervert. Or what some of the other one? I'm trying to remember what you guys.
Well, like mine was obviously like, don't be a shitty guy who. I mean, I think both people were in the wrong in mine. Don't be because she was just like a crazed murderer, and he was a guy who you're just like, well, he deserved it because he was a shitty guy who was just trying to get her money. Yeah. And then the second one, I think it's a lot about just like it's a classic Frankenstein, like don't try to cheat death.
Yeah,
sort of
don't
thing.
play God.
Yeah.
I feel like mine's just like, don't be a nag.
Yeah.
What's your last one up?
So my last one is from the final season as well. It is called Cold War, which seems really plain until you find out what the twist is.
Also with a K or?
No case. No case here. But a rare pre-train spotting instance of Ewan McGregor.
I saw that he was on the disc I put in, and I was like, damn it, I wish I got the Ewan McGregor episode.
Yeah, Ewan McGregor is in this one. So they are a group of 3 people. They're in a car, and they're out in front of a gas station. And you find out through the process of their conversation that they're intending on going inside and robbing the gas station. So they head in. They've got their guns and everything pulled, but they happen to find out that someone is already robbing the gas station. So they end up getting into.
I hate when that happens.
They end up getting into a shootout with those people, and they end up winning. based on the fact that the woman had a sneaky gun under her skirt. And on top of that, they also pissed her off. They called her a bitch, and she doesn't like being called a bitch. So
not many people do.
yeah, not many big fans. But yeah, so they go through the process. During that, Ewan McGregor's almost shot in the face, and he's like, no, anything but the face. Don't touch my face. And then he gets shot in the leg. The shootout ensues, and then they all die, including the driver, because he comes in from the car to try to find a cigarette lighter and is unable to find it. They get in the car. They take off. They're trying to remove the bullet from Ewan McGregor's leg, and he's like, "You're digging into the wrong leg." And she's like, "There's a hole in your pants." And he's like, "There's multiple holes in these pants. Look for the newest one." And so they get into an argument, and she's like, "You don't treat me very well. You treat me like shit." And he's like, "We're gonna be together forever. Like, you're gonna have to get over this. Like and if you leave, you'll be back." So she heads out to a bar, and there's this African American gentleman sitting at the bar. And he's complaining to the barkeep that there are no women around, that it's all old, rotting men. And as far as that goes, she shows up and she's like, "What kind of woman are you looking for?" And so they start sparking up a conversation and they start dancing. And we cut back to the apartment, and Ewan McGregor walks back in with groceries and sees her jacket is on the chair. And he's like, "I knew you'd be back." And then she opens the bathroom door in nothing but a towel. And then the dude comes up behind her and is like, "Oh, we've been doing stuff all night." Like, let him know what's going on. And they get into an argument and they start talking. And he was like, Ewan McGregor says, basically, "How do you expect this to work? He's different than we are." And so he starts thinking that he starts thinking that it's a race thing, but it turns out it's a species thing. And he shoots him and says that the biggest difference between him is that he's still alive, and then shoots him. And basically it's revealed that the two of them are zombies. So they start like talking about like how that kind of relationship wouldn't work or whatever. And then all of a sudden he jumps back up and starts attacking them. And he turns out to be a vampire who is very anti-zombie and is saying that zombies eat the trash that vampires leave behind. And it's almost like a direct correlation of your like zombies versus vampires movie theory, where it's like, they kind of both go in and out of vogue around the same times. And so as far as that goes, they get into this huge brawl with him. And after he starts talking a bunch of shit and he calls her a bitch and all this stuff, they start fighting, and they feel like they've got him on the ropes. And then he grabs them, pulls them really close. She's carrying a shotgun, and it ends up getting pointed at Ewan McGregor's face. And he's like, "No, not my face." They fall out the window. The vampire turns into a bat, and then so we cut to the two of them at the bar again, and she's like saying "Oh, we're gonna be together forever and we'll get through this," and then it pans over to his face and she shot him by accident, and so his whole face is just fucked up, but still alive, and he seems very very upset about it, and she's like, "We both can't be beautiful."
That also sounds like a really good episode. I was not expecting the vampire twist.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that because it's just completely, seemingly unrelated, but then like, little things like when he says, not the face, and you're like, well, why would it matter? And then you're like, oh, because he's a zombie, so he would still live. That little stuff is cute. I enjoy that.
Also, the name Cold War makes a lot more sense.
Because they're dead.
Yeah, because they're all dead.
Yeah. I just feel like I really want to pick it apart, the logistics of a vampire and a zombie not knowing each other were vampire and zombies, but I'm just going to leave that alone.
Probably best for your sanity.
I mean, overall, I enjoyed this. I don't think that it was as, I guess, emotional as some of the Twilight Zone stuff and as cryptic with its messages as some of the Twilight Zone stuff. And the only reason I compare it is because we did an episode like this with that.
Yeah.
But obviously a lot more updated and a lot more gruesome
than
the Twilight Zone
and
stuff.
a campier experience
Right,
overall.
yeah. It's a lot more fun than the Twilight Zone stuff. I had a good time. I would definitely revisit this again.
Yes.
Yeah, I think every time I check out, like, I'll throw on an episode, it always makes me want to watch more because they're very easily digestible. Like, you get a little 20, 25-minute, like, bite-sized little fun, campy horror story, and then you get to move on to something completely different. And the show does, like, run the gamut of all kinds of different stuff. And the coolest thing is, later on, like you were saying, like Ewan McGregor, they have all kinds of celebrity cameos, like, and they have a lot of really cool directors come on. It's one of those shows that got a lot of talented people involved. Robert Zemeckis was really, really heavily involved in the show. So there's even the whole episode that's like really famous for using like the Forrest Gump like CG putting people into other scenes. So it's an episode of Tales from the Crypt where it's like brings back a bunch of dead celebrities and like has them all, and uses the Forrest Gump like technique of putting historical figures back in. So yeah, I mean, I'm super happy that you guys enjoyed it and that we got a chance to do this, because it's always a show that I want to recommend to people, and that I'm always and I haven't seen the whole thing, so even this, like, I'm pretty sure I'd seen my first episode, but definitely not my second one. And the ones that you guys said, I don't think I've seen either. So now this makes me want to like go home and actually watch those episodes.
Yeah,
it reminded me a lot of that Creep Show remake that they came out on Shudder.
Yeah, very much. Like, and that's why I want to go back and rewatch that Creep Show, just because it, even with like the little ghoulish puppet like host guy, was very much
I think
Crypt
it's
Keeper
just
thing.
named Creep. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
Creeper?
I think it's just Creep.
Oh, okay.
there's this app or this service called Cameo, I think, where you can pay celebrities, they're usually like B celebrities or whatever, to record like happy birthday videos for you or whatever. And John Kassir, who does the Crypt Keeper's voice, is on there. And for like $50 or something, you can have him record a thing. So I'm just putting that out there into the ether. Anthony's birthday is in June. And, I'm just saying.
No, it's not.
Anthony Silva's birthday is in June.
Why did you say mine?
Cool. Yeah. So hope you enjoyed listening to us chat about some Tales from the Crypt. I definitely recommend, like I said earlier, you can find most of these episodes on YouTube. So if you've never seen it, definitely check it out. Try to see an episode that has the intro, because that has a really good Danny Elfman composed intro song. And it has a really nice use of miniatures. Zooms in the Crypt Keeper's little mansion and stuff. Used to scare the shit out of me when I was a kid. And if you watch it on YouTube, you typically don't get the intro.
No.
It's like a 2-minute long intro that like swoops through the castle and everything and goes down into the crypt, and it's really neat. I'm gonna have to watch it after. But yeah, now that we're done with that, let's go ahead and move on to our watch list, because I know we got some things to recommend.
Patrick, what is it? Where are you going?
I've got to return some videotapes.
All right, so I'll go ahead and jump into watch list first. So I actually checked out the first episode of the Robert Englund show, True Terror.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I was going to ask if anybody had seen that yet.
Yeah, so I checked out the first episode. It is very lore-ish as far as the way that it works. You have expert opinions about the stories, the reenacted sequences, the dramatization style.
Or the reenactments.
Yeah. They have those. They have those that it cuts to, and then it also has narration over the top by Robert Englund, and it also has scenes in between. Each episode has 3 different stories that it digs into. The first one all revolved around different types of death, and it was an interesting episode. It's got decent production values, except for the parts with Robert Englund. He's standing in front of a green screen. It is very obvious that he's standing in front of a green screen, which is unfortunate. But I mean, you got to do what you got to do. They got the man to do it, so I mean, just getting to hear him talk, I'm cool with that.
Just put him in a boiler room. Like, that would be so cool.
Give him some sweet knife hand and just let him scrape the shit out of things.
Yeah.
Everybody wants to hear that.
What do they call that? ASMR?
Oh, that's the opposite of ASMR.
Yeah, so I have 3 movies that I wanted to recommend that I watched since the last time we recorded. The first one is called Raw, which we mentioned earlier. This is a movie that came out, I think, a couple of years ago.
2016, I believe.
2016. So a few years ago now. Wow. This movie was awesome. I know that you said that you had seen it, Anthony, and that you weren't as big a fan of it. I really, really liked it a lot. I don't know if it's because I was just like super in the mood for that kind of movie, because I just watched Bliss, which has a very similar premise. But yeah, Raw is basically like the tamer, more artsy version of Bliss. Bliss is a lot more just like dialed up to 11. Thought it was really, really good score, really well shot. I thought the acting was really great. Very cool little coming of age story. The second movie that I guess I can briefly talk about that one real quick, but basically, like we said earlier in the trivia, the premise is a girl goes to college. She is part of like a hazing ritual at the college. She is a lifelong vegetarian, so is the rest of her family. Part of the hazing ritual is that she has to eat some raw, like rabbit.
I believe it's rabbit.
Rabbit liver or something like that. Rabbit kidney, I believe. Sets off a chain of events that lead to some pretty gruesome flesh-eating type activities. So if anybody's interested in those coming-of-age cannibalism stories. The second movie that I had to recommend, this one I recommend with a huge caveat, because it is a movie that is a very, very uncomfortable watch. I specifically went into it because it had a really high rating on like I think Rotten has like a 98 or something. Like it has really really good reviews. So I was like, I'll check this out. It's called
The Greasy Strangler.
no, it's called Hagazusa or Hagazusa. It is a German film. Hagazusa just translates to witch. So it's basically it's like Germany's answer to The Witch. And it is about a young girl and her mom who basically get shunned from their town. It takes place like in that witchy, like that, I think it's like 16th century or something like that. They get shunned from their town, go live like out in the outskirts of town because people think that they are witches. And then some shit goes down with the mom. She gets sick and goes kind of crazy, and then the movie skips forward to the girl grown up, and she's kind of this loner outsider and all this with a baby. You don't really know where the baby came from. It's hers. And the movie just gets incredibly melancholy and disturbing after that. There's just a lot of really fucked up shit that happens to her character, and then also just in general. It's gorgeous. One of the prettiest looking movies I've seen in a really long time. Definitely had me in a trance. Very little dialogue. It is in German. Very little dialogue, but it has an amazing score by a band called MMMD. But I would only recommend it to people who really are okay with like some fucked up material. It's not a fun watch. And my final movie, yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. It's well crafted, but it's very ambiguous, not a very tight narrative, very slow. So if you want a slow movie that's also going to make you feel like you're going to throw up, then yeah, check it out. I just wanted to kind of test myself by watching it, and I enjoyed it well enough. The movie that I used as a palate cleanser, though, is on Shudder. So is Hagazusa, also on Shudder. It is called One Cut of the Dead. I don't know if you guys have heard this. Seen about this?
Seen about this?
Seen this? Heard about this? One Cut of the Dead is a Japanese movie that also had super good reviews, so I decided to check it out. And the basic premise is an independent film crew is trying to shoot a zombie film in one take in a warehouse with like their crazy obsessed director, and a real zombie apocalypse. The movie is found footage, and then a real zombie apocalypse breaks out while they're filming their fake zombie movie, and the director is like, yes, exactly, this is what I want, and starts trying to basically continue shooting the movie while the actors are being attacked by real zombies. And he knows it's legit, yeah. Oh. The thing is, that's like the first half hour of the movie, and then the movie takes a complete shift, visually, tonally, like everything takes a complete shift. It turns into an entirely different movie, and that's when the movie gets really, really fun. It's mostly a comedy, and if you love like behind the scenes sort of like of making a movie, which I'm sure someone like John who has done that now, like you'll really love it because then it kind of flips the whole thing on its head. So the first part might be hard to get through because it's really rough and it's purposefully done in like a really shitty low budget way. So if you get through the first half hour, which is the found footage zombie movie, the credits roll at like 30 minutes, and you're like, what? And then it cuts and starts basically the whole rest of the movie.
Ooh,
I'm
intrigued.
Yeah,
I know, me too.
And the whole thing is only
selling this thing.
Yeah, and the whole thing is only like 90 minutes. It's not a long movie, and at the end, very heartwarming. I was very inspired. I thought it was.
I was not expecting you to say that.
No, it was the perfect. It was absolutely the perfect palate cleanser after watching that other movie. Because at the end of it, I was like, man, I can sleep well tonight. That was a feel good movie. And zombies. And so, yeah, for someone who is super burnt out on zombies in general, I really didn't want to check it out. But I think it does something completely different with the genre.
Speaking of zombies, I haven't seen it. I don't know if you guys have, but the Peninsula trailer is out.
Yeah, I haven't checked it out yet. I'm excited to watch it.
I do not want to watch it, but I do want to watch it.
Yeah.
You know, our classic Catch-27. But that's it for my recommendations for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's it for me. What about you, John?
Yeah, I think I'm done as well.
All right. Well, we sincerely hope that you guys are staying safe in your current quarantine conditions and that you are enjoying our return to form with these new episodes. What are we talking about next week, guys?
Next week, we are doing horror redemptions for Perez and I, and then we will be going into 3 new horror misses for all of us.
Cool.
So I'll be watching The Exorcist.
And I'll be watching Henry, Portrait of a Serial Killer.
Nice, good choices. And this is your guys' first. These are your first time seeing these movies, right?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
In its entirety, in one sitting, yes.
Yeah, because you can say you've basically seen The Exorcist just from seeing clips, but I mean, it'll be nice to sit down and watch it like from front to back. Yeah, it's a good experience. Henry, I saw a long time ago, so I can't really speak to it. So, but I'll finally be getting on the board. I need to figure out what my shameful horror miss is. I'm sure there are some.
If you guys are feeling particularly crazy, John and I dove into an app called House Party.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically FaceTime, but there's games built into it. Heads Up is built into it. Trivia is built into it, so that's really fun. A game very similar
Called
to
Chips and Guac. It's very similar to Cards Against Humanity.
Right, and then a drawing one too. So you can do up to like 10 people, I think.
Yeah.
So if that's something that interests you guys, then check that out so that you have something to separate the time. We did it with one of our friends who recently had a baby and is not seeing people. So that was fun. It was a good time.
Yeah, sounds awesome.
There's another application that I would suggest to download if you were having any mental health issues during this time. There's an app called Sanvello that basically you can either connect it to your current health insurance in order to get free access to all of the premium features, but the regular basic features are totally fine as far as like being able to track things, doing certain types of therapy, or watching like videos, or listening to like basically like podcasts about mental health. It's a great opportunity to kind of dig in and get yourself through this. They're also currently offering, until this whole crisis is over, they're offering their premium services free of charge, even if you do not have the insurance that matches.
No, that's awesome. Yeah, and I've seen other apps doing similar things where people are just like, here, do what you need to do to get through this. So if you guys are feeling like that, then check that stuff out, or feel free to reach out to us. I mean, we're available through email and through the podcast, so stay safe and stay sane.
Yeah, and John's personal number is 555
666.
Yeah, so
1313.
that wraps it up for this week. We will see you next week with our horror redemptions. Thanks for listening. Stay safe.
Keep it creepy.
You can find Porcelain Peak on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Store, Spotify, TuneIn, and Stitcher. Wherever you listen, don't forget to rate, review, share, and subscribe so you never miss a spine-tingling episode. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and at porcelainpeak.com for additional content. Special thanks to Randy Greer for composing the Porcelain Peak intro music, and to me, Anthony Silva, for designing the Porcelain Peak logo. All episodes and additional content is hosted, written, produced, designed, and edited by the Porcelain Peak team, consisting of Anthony Perez, John Brasher, and Anthony Silva.
This has been here words for a weirdos production.